I am live. Guess what? Guess what? At the top of my stream, it's that time where I open up Stream Manager, if I remember how to do that, and make sure I have the right category. Done. The category today is music. What else is going on today? Okay, I should share my screen. Nice, nice. So, gentle viewers, when last we poked at this, I was doing everything with, what was I doing it with? Basic Windows drivers through Elgato virtual mixers. And there was a ton of latency, particularly with the keyboards. So I today spent more time than I would have preferred installing drivers for and trying to set up Motu UltraLite, which I've had for a couple of years, but only ever really tried to set up on Mac. My fancy Mac was a business lease, and it went back to the Mac store, sadly. And my old Mac is, I mean, it will kind of technically run, but it's not running well, and it's not good enough for live streaming. So, long story, even longer. I hooked the Motu up to my PC, and immediately, I don't know if you can even see the piano, but latency is yeah, you can't see my here. Honestly, no idea how that translates to stream, but it is fast enough for MIDI that I can play along with the track and not be distracted by the latency. Whereas before, I was having to kind of play stuff in kind of with the track and then kind of move everything around afterwards. So, for vocal, we have now a real mic hooked up to the Motu digital interface. Similarly, not much latency. Actually, let's see what they report. Studio audio connections. That's the wrong spot. Studio setup. So this is reporting input latency of 6 milliseconds, which is great. Output latency of 9 milliseconds, which is also great. So the round trip latency is basically not audible. And anyway, without getting into the acoustics of it. That's really quite tight. I have no idea what this ASIO guard latency is. That would be audible, and but I'm not really noticing that. Anywho, so the story has a happy ending, which is that the latency is somewhat resolved. However, I've been kind of relying a little bit on, because I've just been like throwing in placeholder vocals. You know, I'm waiting to set up my sound booth. My environment is really pretty noisy. I've turned off the heater, but I don't know why I'm speaking of that right now. I've turned off the, I mean, you could see that that input is active there. Yeah, I turned off the heater so that that's not banging away. But, you know, there's a highway and wind and stuff, and the windows aren't great, and the fridge is pretty noisy. The room has a lot of tone. I mean, my room is a box, doesn't have any audio treatment, so you probably can't hear that on the stream, because for the stream, let's see if I can load this up. Well, it's not going to show you. Well, basically, Elgato has a really good real-time AI noise removal algorithm. It doesn't want to show you the UI for some reason. I'm not going to investigate that right now, but I've got noise removal, de-esser, compressor, and also I said mute button, but I was muted. Anyway, so the vocal tracks I've recorded already are pretty clean in terms of not having a ton of noise on them. So today I'm gonna have to decide whether to record vocals with the noisy mic, but without latency, or record them with the streaming mic and have ridiculous latency. I'll probably do both and see what's most painful. Well, okay. So, and the other exciting thing was, it took me longer than I would have preferred to figure out how to get studio playback to the stream. So, to get the great latency, I've got my headphones plugged right into the Motu instead of my anything like post stream monitor. The punchline is right in front of you. Nothing worked until I enabled Windows audio streams for loopback 1 and 2. This was not clear in any of the manuals or anything I looked at online, but maybe it should have been intuitive. Once you click on loopback in 1 and 2, where'd my wavelength go? Wavelength. Then this becomes available as an input device in Windows, right? So the mic is available as an input device. The channels 1 and 2 basically were by default enabled. Loopback was not enabled by default. It was a lot of trial and error and fruitless online searching to figure out that this would not appear until I clicked on loopback 1 and 2 here in the Motu QMix app. Make sense? There's an update available for firmware. I should install that. Watch it like break everything. I'm not going to do that right now, but anyway, that's what that was. So let's listen to the track now that I've been through the massive preamble, and think about where we got to. Here we go. It's not working for some reason. You know why? I think I know why. Because I was playing with the Qmix with the project open. Take two. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birthplace in a back shed. Kings and angels came to see. The King Herod heard a rumor about a rival who was to be. They set about to kill all the children in the land from sea to sea. An angel's warning to the parents told the family it's time to flee out of Judea into Egypt. Jesus was a refugee. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Could they make it in our era? Get a visa, pay a fee. Would the consular official believe their stories' veracity? Would their papers be in order for the border guard to see? Or must they wait back in the desert to keep arrivals orderly? Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Woe to you who make new and unjust laws to keep away the refugees. Think of Jesus, hear their story first, stand in solidarity. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee.
Not terrible. I was a little bit naughty in between sessions, poking around at, I forget what I was even looking for. Oh, I know what I was doing. I was following the online training for Cubase, and they were pointing me around the interface, and I I had this project open instead of their like Hello World project. And I think I was in loops and samples, and I searched in here for jingle bells and came across these, which I forget which one I liked. I think this one. While I was doing that, I realized I didn't really like the so-called jingle bells that I had put in here. They're kind of okay. I just so I turned them down in the mix, and but I thought it would be fun to drop this in as well. And this has create sampler track, which is cool. So it's automatically thrown in velocity mapping. It's pretty repetitive, but it's more jingle belly than the finger bell sample that we used up here. So I'm inclined to throw some in. Doobly-doo. Volume. Pitch modulators. See, if I knew this program a little bit better, I could throw in a little bit of random pitch variation. So we got, I guess, we have velocity variation, and I can also like, I guess, release really quickly, or a little bit. We can have variations in release a little bit. I don't know. Let's record it and see what it sounds like in the thing, and play more later on. I know how to do this, I'm sure.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem.
So yeah, the latency issue is no more. This sounds like a sample, but
Died at Calvary. His parents.
I think that's okay for a Christmas pop song. Bow. Doink, 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 doink. Look at that timing. Remember last time when everything was just nowhere near where it was supposed to be? Fun times we had. That's not it.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far...
So we're gonna need to throw reverb on that to put it in the background kind of stuff. And maybe throw some stereo spatialization on it. Looks like a mono sample. I mean, it's hard to tell, to be honest. The other thing we might want to do is have it hit early. Because with bells, there's usually the cha-ching, and the cha is the person getting ready to release it. I don't know. Maybe I don't even know from how bells are played by a real percussionist, but these are being played by a team of horses dashing through the snow. Anyway, they're too loud, for one thing. My instrument. How do I get to my jingle bells? Select the track, ye old track, ye old sampler control. Volume is too much.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree, had his birthplace in a bag shed.
Chip down. Tis the season. You get jingle bells.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree, had his birthplace in a bag shed. Kings and angels came to see. The King Herod heard a rumor about a rival who was to be. They set about to kill all the children in the land from sea to sea. An angel's warning to the parents told the family it's time to flee out of...
Also today, I want to try and figure out reverb routing. Because some reverb is just coming from synth presets. The vocal is totally dry. These bells should be like in the background and spread out and stuff like that. What I normally do towards the beginning of the session is just have a listen to the thing and write stuff down that is missing, and then kind of address it in priority sequence. I did not. Let's see, what's my vocal level like? I think my voice is a bit quiet compared to the mix. So I'm going to turn the mix down in the stream. And I'm just going to talk over the track as I jot down notes. So definitely on my list is I want to put an organ in the chorus. I think I might have even said that this last time. And I want to throw some guitar in, maybe today. And play with the reverb, try and figure out the reverb. Maybe throw in doubling, at least on the chorus. And then maybe play with harmony and or choir samples. I don't know. I kind of want to have like a rough cut of this ready on Christmas with like a bit of a like music video. So be judicious about what I actually try and do versus having like a quick mix of the thing. Okay. Engine's ready. Start.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee.
This guy's okay.
Who was
I might pitch him down a bit.
far off Judea, and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree.
Bass seems a little bit loud, at least in these monitors.
Kings and angels came to see.
Vocals are okay.
Herod heard a rumor about a rival who was to be. He set about to kill all the children in the land from sea to sea. An angel's warning to the parents told the family it's time to flee out of Judea into Egypt. Jesus was a refugee. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee.
That seemed a little pitchy, either me or the original.
Get a visa, pay a fee. Would the consular official believe their stories' veracity? Would their papers be in order for the border guard to see? Or must they wait back in the desert to keep arrivals orderly? Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Woe to you who make new and unjust laws to keep away the refugees. Think of Jesus, hear their story first, stand in solidarity. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee.
something has a long stereo tail. So yeah, I'll have to figure out how to turn off the synth reverb and route these instruments to like a global reverb, unless they're already going to a global reverb, and I just have to figure out how to play with it and get my sampler and voice and stuff piped through it. Okay, I wrote down nothing. I think organ is next, because like the chorus has nothing, like it just has the nothing piano part that doesn't even have bass notes. I like that the texture really clears out there. It's sort of an introspective hallelujah. But in the demo that I cannot really play for you because the computer isn't working so good, I did have a Hammond or something going on. Okay, so in priority, so I wrote down nothing that time. I did write down organ at some point. So I think we do that. One of the things I did that you probably didn't hear was while it was playing back, I turned the mix way down in my monitors, which can give it can give me an idea of how the vocals are sitting in the mix. Because if I've got the mix turned up fairly high with 180-degree left and right spread, very quickly I can lose, are the vocals at a good level in the mix? Well, I'll show you what I'm talking about maybe quickly by...
His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birthplace in a back shed. Kings and angels came to see. The King Herod heard a rumor about a rival.
I don't know how that came across in the stream, but just turning the mix down gives a good idea of like how well are the vocals cutting through. The other thing I'm going to do right now that y'all are not going to hear, actually might hear it a little bit in this mic, I'm going to play it back on my monitor speakers, which have no bass and are basically mono, but just have another perspective on like what does the overall mix sound like if it's not like in ideal monitoring circumstances. Y'all don't get to hear this, sorry.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birthplace in a back shed. Kings and angels came to see. The King Herod heard a rumor about a rival who was to be. They set about to kill all the children in the land from sea to sea. An angel's warning to the parents told the family it's time to flee out of Judea into Egypt.
So what I learned is the treble of the Jingle Bells is super obnoxious and tends to dominate the mix if it's with a really sort of treble biased source, which could be a lot of phones on speakers, headphones with no low end. Anyway, trebly monitoring devices those stand out as pretty, they dominate and are kind of obnoxious. So what I think I would do with that is, so I was planning on putting them in the background anyway with reverb. What I mean by that is have them piped to a wet reverb mix, maybe pre-fader, or like pretty high volume piped to reverb, and then their direct level pretty low. And so the thing I might also do is have the go to reverb with the original sound, and put a filter out the high, mellow out the high end with filters on the direct sound, so that we get the brightness of distant bells, and the direct, but the direct sound is not so trebly. I know how to do that in Logic. I don't know how to do that in Cubase. So we will learn it together. I think in terms of the arrangement, so that's, I think, kind of a production problem. In terms of the arrangement, I think finding an organ is next on the list. So we've got this electric piano here. Here it is, vintage Mark I. If I just want to change this instrument, how do I do that? No idea, to be honest. The thing I have been doing is I've got this thing, this instrument that I've added a bunch of sources to. That's a brand name, so maybe things. I wish I knew how to search this. Browser? No. This was working well before. I would just search for a thing. Oh. Oh, here we go. I wish we could audition it right from here. Maybe there's a way. Oops. It's not the way. So if I... You... Hmm. Does anyone remember how we did this before? Add track, MIDI, channel 4. What? Cool. So here's what I don't like. Do I complain? The way I've done this, the MIDI volumes of these things, or like in the mixer, these volumes don't do anything. Because the volume is all controlled by this instrument. Which means I have to open this instrument up if I want to play, if I want to do levels, which is a drag. That's also going to be problematic, I think, if I want to have sophisticated reverb control and stuff with these. I was hoping not to have many virtual instruments, right? Just have one virtual instrument and do stuff with MIDI, but my knowledge of MIDI controls in this program is probably not good enough for that. So I think what we might do is let's remove program. Let's give this organ its own instrument and start trying to do it that way. This is a Christmas rock song, after all. So now this thing has its own fader. And its own like reverb send controls and stuff. So if I put in a choir later, I might not want it up here. Because that would be the altos and the sopranos. But if I put it here, that's right on top of my lead vocal. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I wonder, doubling it down the octave might sound fun too. I'm writing it down. Choir is not on the priority list, so I think we put it in the alto soprano register. Now do we want, what do we want, like, one of the really cool things we can do here is get in some Some sub bass even. My keyboard doesn't go that low. But I think the actual instrument has pedals. So, I can pitch shift it down, that's legal. I was gonna do a thing here, wasn't I?
Jesus was a refugee. Hallelujah, Jesus was a refugee.
May have cut off these. In theory, I like some suspensions in motion. I think we're gonna go with keep it simple for now. Let's do the right chord. I don't actually know how to play the organ, so take this with a grain of salt. I don't know if so. It's kind of smooey because the shared notes I'm holding over. This is not smooey enough. And I mean, I'm thinking now whether to quantize it or not.
Jesus was a refugee. Could they make it in our era? Yeah.
Maybe not the most efficient way to do this. I'm dropping in a separate track here for the bass so that I can crank it way up compared to the top without any sort of finesse required. that bass level I think is about the same as the stand-up bass level. Maybe a bit higher. Jesus was a refugee. I like the sustain on the G. I didn't want to go to the F because we have it up here. Sold. Whoops. As a refugee. Oh, voice leading. An inside voice. Hidden fifths with the lead. Jesus was a refugee. Could they make it in our era? Oh, did I put it on the... It'll be fine. That's why it sounded so quiet. Jesus was a refugee. Could they make it in our era? Out of Judea into Egypt, Jesus was a refugee. Jesus was a refugee. Could they make it in our era? Get a visa, pay your fee. I'm not sure.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birthplace in a back shed. Kings and angels came to see. The King Herod heard a rumor about a rival who was to be. They set about to kill all the children in the land from sea to sea. An angel's warning to the parents told the family it's time to flee out of Judea into Egypt. Jesus was a refugee.
Not doing it for me. Maybe I'll investigate what I did in the old demo and see if I can just copy it over, which I can't really do on stream. Meanwhile, what about just organ bass, organ vibe? Bring back the piano. Did I delete the organ bass? Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that line. I decided to do octaves at the last minute, which I was not prepared for. I can always do that later, so. Definitely pitchy there.
Jesus was a refugee. Could they make it in our era? Get a visa.
That sounded pretty wimpy. After this organ. Refugee. That's it. Refugee. Could they make it in our era? Yeah. Why do I have the muting tool selected? The selecting tool. Why am I talking to myself? Actually helps. I don't know. Why am I streaming you this? You may wonder. I ask myself the same question. Refugee. Could they make it in our era? Get a visa, pay a fee. Would the consular official? I don't hear the bass at all. You have bright bass. What did I do? Would their papers be in order for the border guard to see? Could they make it in our era? Get a visa, pay a fee. Would the consular official believe their stories' veracity? Would their papers be? That's why, because I muted it somehow. For the border guard to see, or must be. Refugee. Could they make it in our era? Get a visa, pay a fee. Would the consular? What did I do? I shouldn't be allowed to use this program. Okay, try that again. Jesus was a refugee. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Could they make it? Where's the transpose button? Are we doing this? Okay, be confident, be bold.
Refugee, could they make it in our era? Get a visa, pay your fee. Would Hallelujah.
I think I want to take the whole piano track. Here's a transpose button right here. I think I want to take the whole piano track. So that's just for the part that's selected. Can I select all? Select all events. So bring the whole piano part up. Out of my vocal range.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birthplace in a back shed. Kings and angels came to see the King Herod heard.
Which will make more sense if I throw guitar in, because guitar is also going to be right on top of my vocal range. But I usually spread out right and left, so it's not going to be directly fighting with the lead in the center. So like right now it kind of leaves an empty space, but I think long term it'll be good.
Let me tell you about the story.
Okay. So I have a tendency sometimes to listen back too many times, but so let's just see, does this kind of work?
Could they make it in our era? Get a visa, pay your fee. Would
I think I think it's okay, except the vocal is so pitchy. Organ. Good enough organ. Next is play with the reverb. What is my appetite for doing that? Okay, let's float this everywhere. Oh, why? Why is this program so hard? Float, float. 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 Okay, I am going to listen to the thing. I'm going to listen to the thing. See if anything egregious leaps out.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birthplace in a back shed. Kings and angels came to see. The King Herod heard a rumor about a rival who was to be. They set about to kill all the children in the land from sea to sea. An angel's warning to the parents told the family it's time to flee out of Judea into Egypt. Jesus was a refugee. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Could they make it in our era? Get a visa, pay your fee. Would the consular official believe their stories' veracity? Would their papers be in order for the border guard to see? Or must they wait back in the desert to keep arrivals orderly? Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Woe to you who make new and unjust laws to keep away the refugees. Think of Jesus, hear their story first, stand in solidarity. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee.
Oh, I like that effect. That might need to kick in on the first chorus. Remove. Okay, save. Overall, I was thinking, wanted more contrast between the spoken part and the vocal. The second verse sounded more compressed and unnatural than the first verse. I recorded it on a whole different day, I think. I liked that effect. I liked the naked organ, a little bit of piano and vocal. Maybe save it for the end, maybe. The first chorus I didn't think was super effective. Could they make it in our... And that last chorus really was sounded pretty cool to me. have to delete these. I've got this X. Do I have to commit? Why commit? I'm also interested in let's try out this new mic. Mic 1 2, mic 1 2. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Mic's gonna have a lot more noise on it than probably would prefer. Me. Oh, hallelujah. Didn't do it nice and close on that. Hallelujah. 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 Jesus was. That gets eaten by the organ. Out of Judea into Egypt, Jesus was a refugee. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Could they make it in our era? How do I rename this? Oh, like so. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Could they make it? Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Could they make it in our era? Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. I mean, obviously you'd have to play with the timing to double it. I don't know if that adds much. For this arrangement to be finished, it needs... I don't think it needs much else.
Let me tell you about the...
I'm listening again. I'm crossing out, double down the octave of the chorus. So I might do automatic double tracking on that chorus and pitch correction to kind of play with it. I think it's interesting to have that voice kind of on its own. I've listened to the start, I think, enough times.
Egypt, Jesus was a refugee. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Could they make it in our era? Get a visa, pay a fee. Would the consular official believe their stories' veracity? Would their papers be in order for the border guard to see? Or must they wait back in the desert to keep arrivals orderly? Refugee. Woe to you who make new. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Jesus was a refugee. Woe to you who hallelujah, hallelujah, Jesus was a refugee. Woe to you who make new and hallelujah, 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 Jesus was a refugee. Woe to you who make new and unjust law. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Jesus was a refugee. Hallelujah, Jesus was a refugee. Woe to you who make new. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Jesus was a refugee. Woe to you who make new and unjust laws to keep away the refugees. Think of Jesus, hear their story first, stand in solidarity. Hallelujah, 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 Jesus was a refugee.
We've already done this. Select. Oh, this is so hard. Ah, help, help, help. Why is it so hard? Make program easier.
Think of Jesus, hear their story first, stand in solidarity. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee.
The earlier courses do not have the jingle bells. I think that's right. Or is it that it's missing these jingle bells? Something seemed off with the bells. Ah.
Jesus, hear their story first, stand in solidarity. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee.
Rhythm's pretty impressive on that shaker. It's good that these are not exposed very often. Messy. How much do I care? Did I never quantize these guys? What happened here? These guys are not, like, in the right place. Maybe I had all of them selected when I dragged this over, creating chaos.
refugee. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee.
So there comes a point at which I get kind of like, I lose objectivity. Like, did this thing make it better? Did this make it worse? Do I have any good ideas? Are any ideas good? What's my name? Where am I? Who are all you people? So I'm hitting those diminishing returns, I think, where it's like, it'd be cool to come back to this in a couple hours or like a day and listen to it again and then sort of have a little bit of distance and objectivity and be like, oh, that was good or that was terrible. Having said that, I am interested in figuring out some stuff technically. For instance, these jingle bells. These jingle bells are all jingle bells. This vocal track. Figuring out like the channel strip. If I want to send this to a reverb before the compressor, how does one do that in this program? I can see where the compressor is. Inserts. So this insert is the compressor. Send. Send is on. Claims. It's sending 0 to reverb. So if I move this pre-fader, is it also pre-compressor? I wonder. Select destination. So we have a reverb bus. So let's find that and see if anything is on it right now by listening to the tune. Yeah, let's change views here. Let
me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea.
Did it move when I wasn't paying attention?
At Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birthplace in a back shed. Kings and angels came to see. The King Herod heard a rumor about
Where's my fader for this send?
who was to be. They set about to kill all the
I
children
thought I could just drag this.
in the land from sea to sea.
Send gain.
An angel's warning to the parents told the family it's time to flee out of Judea into Egypt. Jesus was a refugee. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
Claims a few things are going there.
Jesus was a refugee.
Could they make it in our era? Get a visa, pay a fee. Would the consular official believe their stories' veracity? Would their papers be in order for the border guard to see? Or must they wait back in the desert to keep arrivals orderly? Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Woe to you who make new and unjust laws to keep away the refugees. Think of Jesus, hear their story first, stand in solidarity. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. So I figured out how to send stuff to Reverb, I guess. If I knew the keyboard commands for...
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birthplace in a backshed. Kings and angels came to see. The King Herod heard a rumor about a rival who was to be. Set about to kill all the children in the land from sea to sea. The angels roared into the
So
heavens, told the family it's time to flee out of Judea into Egypt. Jesus was a refugee. Hallelujah. Let me tell you about the story of a well-known
we're just listening to the reverb now. I don't know how well that you can hear that on the stream. So I seem to have discovered that the way this is set up, the reverb is after the compressor and before the fader. I like my reverb to be before the compression, because then when the performance is louder, you get more reverb, even though the direct, the dry part is compressed. So I would have to set that up differently, I think. Unless... So I would have to get a little bit fancy and like send my... I could throw the reverb on here before the compressor, but I like everything to go to the same reverb. Like everything's going to a reverb effect through the sends and it's getting mixed in there. I wonder if I can. Logic does this, I think, better, unless I'm missing something here, where you can have sends before your effects. So I might have to have a couple of channels for the vocal. I'm probably missing stuff. Because somewhere there's like a channel strip. That's a thing that one can have. Yeah, like the ability to send things pre-EQ. Just mess around with the order of inserts. Anyway, not a fan of this reverb, I think. Oh, this is the option. That's the option for reverb? What to do? What's the difference between RoomWorks and RoomWorks SE? This looks like there's more going on. Okay, I'm going to set up some loop points so that we're listening to vocals. It looks like I already kind of have. Listen to this set of vocals here and play with reverb. Yes? Who's with me? His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birthplace in a back shed. Kings and angels came to see. King Herod heard a rumor about a rival who was to be. They set about to kill all the children in the land from sea to sea. An angel's warning to the parents told the family it's time to flee out of Judea into Egypt. Jesus was a refugee. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. Jesus was a refugee. Good they parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birthplace in a back shed. Kings and angels came to see. The King Herod heard a rumor about a rival who was to be. They set about to kill all the children in the land from sea to sea. An angel's warning to the parents told the family it's time to flee out of Judea into Egypt. Jesus
That's a
was
super long
a
reverb time.
refugee. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Good they parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birthplace in a back shed. Kings and angels came to see. The King Herod heard a rumor about a rival who was to be. He set about to kill all the children in the land from sea to sea. An angel's warning to the parents told the family it's time to flee out of Judea into Egypt. Jesus was a refugee. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Good they parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. I like that reverb. In general, there are lots of things I like to do with, as I said, with the vocal routing, being able to like EQ. Yeah, have the reverb be pre-compressor, for instance, and then different EQ going to the reverb than necessarily the vocals, but reverb sounds pretty cool. The end.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birthplace in a back shed. I was like, okay, so if I mute the vocal, because it's pre, it'll still go to reverb, I think. It does not. Yeah, because I'm interested in like, what else hits this reverb? And then what is this? Did someone throw a reverb on the bass already? Did it come with, the bass come with compression? I don't even know. Let's see, these things all claim to send to reverb, but they don't show up over here. These guys I think have their own built-in. No, these are bypassed, which is why they don't go.
My stamina's fading. We're coming up on 2 hours. Here's what we're gonna do. The speaker gets his own track, so I can play with different effects.
Let me tell you about the story
That's a lot.
of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a...
Okay, so he ends here. By he, I guess I mean me. Think. I guess I could do this with automation and not control all these effects on the same channel, but it's the 21st century. Got tracks to burn here, people. Okay, so spoken maybe does not need reverb. Spoken does need compressor, but this isn't. So this is a this will looks like it just doubles at the octave. That's not what I want. I wanted literally a pitch shift. Correction off. Tolerance 50. Transpose. And I guess I should loop something slightly different.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem. Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a... Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birthplace.
That was pretty effective, I think.
Let me tell you about the story Judea, and who died at Calvary.
I like it. It just makes it a bit deeper without deeper than I can comfortably go when it sounds, but it sounds comfortable in that register. I feel like let's bring the reverb back a little bit.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birthplace in a back shed. Kings and angels came
Didn't mean to do that.
see. The King Herod heard a rumor about a rival who was to be. He set about to kill all the children in the land from sea to sea. An angel's warning to the parents.
So double clicking it does a thing,
It's time to flee,
which it then
out
doesn't.
of Judea into Egypt. Jesus was
Single click. Okay.
a refugee. Hallelujah.
I like this. This is pre.
Hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Could they make it in our era? Get a visa, pay a fee. Would the consular official believe their stories' veracity? Would their papers be in order?
Can't just drag it.
Guard to see, or must they wait back in the desert to keep arrivals orderly? Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Woe to you who make new and unjust laws to keep away the refugees. Think of Jesus, hear their story first, stand in solidarity. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was.
I may not have deleted all the vocals on that channel. That was pretty unexpected.
A refugee. Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birth. Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birth. Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birth. Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birth. Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birth. Let me tell you about the story of a well-known.
Who else is tired of hearing that? The pitch catches me a bit off guard because I'm used to the previous pitch when it comes in. However, I feel like it, before it sounded like me kind of doing a low voice, and now it sounds like a low voice. It's maybe not me. I'm reasonably satisfied with that. Bow. That's all right. Notes for tomorrow, Andrew. So what I want to do is vocals, separate pre reverb channel. So there's going to be one channel that is just this reverb send. Pre-fader. And then the output is going to be another channel that has the actual vocal effects. If I wanted to get fancy with it, like I might want to have like a separate EQ for the reverb. It's probably not as important for the vocals as for like the trick I want to do with the bells. The bells are going to be a little bit complicated too, because right now all these MIDI instruments are sharing the same audio routing. So finessing the sends on those is going to be problematic. They might need to have their own instrument instead of just a MIDI channel, which is probably fine. I think, it's been a long time since I've seriously done music production, and I think technology is just way faster. Like I have more memory, I have solid state drive, CPUs are a bit faster, all that other stuff, and like Cubase has had like decades now to optimize their software. Motu's drivers sound great so far. Are just behaving really well. Yeah, I'm tired. I'm lost my own train of thought. Okay. To do for Andrew. Split MIDI instruments. Vocals, separate pre-reverb channel, split MIDI instruments. Try separate EQ. For reverb versus dry. So the idea is we get nice bright room tones, but less jangly of the bells. And I have not really paid too much attention to what's happening in this mix. So I'm just gonna look at the meters while the song is going one last time. To see if there's something to be seen with, for instance, the drum routing mostly. Also, I'm not really sure what this is. HS out 2. Doesn't have an input, it seems. That might have been a mistake at some point. All right. Sorry to inflict this upon you one last time. Let's check it out.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born.
There's one more thing I want to try. Which is just to have a cheese 2-bar jingles before the voice comes in. I would like to try that, but there doesn't seem to be an easy insert silence. Unless I will Google that tonight. Seems like there should be edit functions. Insert silence. Oh. Ha. Too easy. Too easy. I should save before I do this in case I hate it. Do. We need this much. And I'm kind of specifically copying this over. I know there's a keyboard command to duplicate, but I don't know what it is. I'm specifically not taking the exact same 2 bars of the bells and the bass. Not that it probably makes much of a difference. Control, Alt makes a copy. Okay, let's see if it's terrible.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem.
I think it adds nothing except for space. I'll listen to it one more time, see if it grows on me.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee.
Adds nothing. I mean, I love that this whole thing loads in less than 10 seconds. I'm so spoiled. Let's leave 4 bars here. Just so that there's some space here. Edit, range, delete. That worked well. Okay, plan A. Watch monitors, go to sleep. Mostly just because we haven't yet.
Let me tell you about the story of a well-known refugee who was born in far-off Judea and who died at Calvary. His parents went to Bethlehem for a census decree. Had his birthplace in a back shed. Kings and angels came to see. The King Herod heard a rumor about about a rival who was to be, who set about to kill all the children in the land from sea to sea. An angel's warning to the parents told the family it's time to flee out of Judea into Egypt. Jesus was a refugee. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Could they make it in our era? Get a visa, pay a fee. Would the consular official believe their stories' veracity? Would their papers be in order for the border guard to see? Or must they wait back in the desert to keep arrivals orderly? Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee. Woe to you who make new and unjust laws to keep away the refugees. Think of Jesus, hear their story first, stand in solidarity. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus was a refugee.
I mean, that's cheesy at the end, but and the timing is off, but doesn't bother me. All right, I think you all have listened to that enough, as have I. Thanks for joining me, those who checked it out. And yeah, tomorrow I'll listen to it again, see what else I want to do with it. Maybe put some guitars. Definitely mess with the vocal effects and jingly bell effects, especially reverb. Figure out the reverb sense for the instruments. This is not a produced track, but it's been fun, and so I think I'll stick it on, like, on Christmas. I'll figure out a video and stick it on the it's been a good learning process for Cubase, and it's been a fun I think this is like, I'll probably come back to this next year and like finish it when I have the vocal booth back and this mic set up properly, and I've shaken off some of the rust and have learned this studio a little bit better, and actually like produce the track. But I think like Christmas Day, TikTok, Insta, Facebook, YouTube drop of this the demo is within reach. It'll be a fun little Christmas present. 12 to 20 people will probably watch it on all platforms on Christmas Day. Babbling and nodding off. Till next time.